In the evening, the manager knocked on my desk. "You'll be dining with a client tonight. Go with them." Just a few hours ago, I had advanced a month's salary to him. With the borrowed money and my previous savings, I barely managed to raise $500,000. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. As I entered the private room, I saw Victor Wilson. His tall figure moved gracefully as he chatted with others. The brilliance of the crystal chandelier outlined his handsome profile. The manager gently pushed me forward. Suddenly, all eyes were on me. "Mr. Wilson, is this someone from your company?" Victor casually glanced over and smiled. "Yes, she is a new employee." "Why does a new employee need Mr. Wilson to accompany her?" "She looks good." During the small talk, everyone took their seats. The manager arranged for me to sit next to Victor and whispered, "You must be smart tonight. If Mr. Wilson needs you to entertain and drink for him, so be it." People subtly asked, "Mr. Wilson, can this new employee drink or not?" Before Victor could answer, the manager hurriedly replied, "Of course, she can drink." After saying that, he pushed a glass of wine in front of me. "Cheers." Victor smiled and lightly tapped the table. I raised the glass and, with determination, downed it in one gulp. The pungent liquor recklessly rushed down my throat, setting my stomach on fire. The crowd cheered, ready to follow up, but Victor changed the subject. "What were we talking about? Let's move on." In the meantime, the atmosphere was lively, and many people wanted to toast Victor. He made excuses about his stomach and didn't drink a drop. In the end, the manager found various ways to pour the drinks into my belly. Finally, I couldn't hold on any longer and went to the restroom. The faucet at the sink was turned on, and I kept retching. My hair became loose and fell into the sink, quickly becoming damp. After sending a text to Ariel, I completely lost my strength, lowered my head, and leaned on the sink, panting heavily with my eyes closed. There were slow and steady footsteps outside the door. The door was pushed open. I thought it was a woman coming to use the restroom. To my surprise, Victor's voice came through, calm and composed. "You can't hold on anymore?" I mustered my strength, stood up, and staggered out. Victor grabbed my arm and dragged me back. His big hand touched the back of my neck, burning hot. "Let go of me." The stomach acid corroded my throat, and every word I spoke caused pain. Victor effortlessly dragged me in front of the mirror, lifted my chin, and sneered. "Take a good look at yourself. If you go out like this, aren't you afraid of attracting the wrong kind of attention?" In the mirror, my eyes were moist, my cheeks were rosy, my hair was messy around my ears, and my collar was open. Victor looked through the mirror, shamelessly scanning my body with his deep gaze. I closed my eyes, trembling slightly all over. "Who else has more ill intentions than you?" Victor chuckled lightly and kissed my ear. "Will you come home with me tonight? Is that okay? Get lost." He ruthlessly covered my mouth and greedily squeezed the oxygen from my lungs. Under the influence of alcohol, the blood boiled like molten lava, crazily rushing through my body. The light blurred into clusters, and the water droplets seemed to be separated by a layer of film. One by one, like sulfuric acid dripping on the heart. It was unbearably painful. I was covered in cold sweat, weakly pushing him away. It felt like being dragged back to those dark days. I stared hopelessly at this colorful world, feeling out of place among them. "Victor, can you let me go?" I silently plummeted, crashing fiercely into the bottom of the well. It must have been painful, but I couldn't feel it. "Jasmine," Victor called out to me, no longer with the eyes that wished for my death. He was anxious, so much so that I couldn't tell if the person in front of me was the young him or the present him. I said, "Victor, I never want to see you again." This high fever came on fiercely. I was in a daze, in excruciating pain, curled up in bed tossing and turning. Outside the window, the north wind howled, and in my semi-conscious state, I dreamed of the past. I was lying on Victor's back, asking him, "Victor, what will happen if I die?" He carried me steadily on his back and comforted me softly. "Don't talk nonsense, it's just a fever, you'll be fine after the injection." "Hey, do you have enough money for your living expenses?" "Injections are expensive." "It's okay. How could it be okay? How many jobs did you take?" Victor did not answer. He put me down at the nurse's station, squatted in front of me, and said seriously, "As long as you are safe and sound, it doesn't matter to me." I huddled in a thick down jacket, feeling conflicted. "When my parents stop arguing, I will ask them for living expenses to pay you back." Victor touched my hair, his eyes gentle. "Trust me, we will have money in the future." But I didn't have the peaceful life he hoped for. The night Victor went to another province for a competition, when I came back home, I pushed open my parents' bedroom. Dad was holding another woman in his arms. My glamorous life began to crumble from that moment, followed by intense quarrels between my parents, Dad leaving without a word, and the Fisher family piling up debts. One late night, a group of middle-aged men came to collect debts. The swaying light above, the men's excited shouts, the dull pain and nauseating sensation on my skin, and Mom's heart-wrenching curses all mixed together in my mind like a pot of porridge. The scene seemed to fast forward. Mom was forced to death in the bathtub by the creditors. Ariel found me naked and in a vulnerable state and took me to the distant southern city. On a rainy day, I curled up in a corner of the hospital, wearing morning clothes and looking disheveled. puzzled. Does she have a family history of depression? Does she have any relatives? Ariel looked at me with concern. She has a boyfriend who is competing out of town. Notify him to come over, the doctor said, mixing in some professional terms. Her suicidal tendencies are apparent now, and the treatment is very difficult. For the next few years, she will need someone to accompany her, and her family needs to be prepared for a prolonged battle. At that time, my mental state was already unable to support me in going to the police to seek justice. Ariel and I were like two lost souls. We fled the place where we had lived since childhood. On the same day, Victor's name was the first on the list of competition winners. He obtained the opportunity to go abroad. He called me. When I answered, all I heard was the howling wind. Jasmine, Victor's voice was extremely gentle. I won't let you down. In 3 years, I will marry you. I looked at the slowly closing iron gate, unable to find my way home anymore. Victor, I may not be able to be with you, I said, holding back my sobs as tears quietly fell. He held his breath. Why? I opened my mouth, hesitated for a moment. His future was bright. Did I really want to selfishly trap Victor's remaining life in the continuous rain of the southern city? Outside the window, a girl cried uncontrollably behind the fence. The boy's face was filled with heartbreaking numbness and disgust. I saw love disappearing from his eyes, leaving me in despair. The wind blew, revealing the bruised and pinched marks on my neck. I wiped away my tears and said, Victor, you will have a happy life. Let's break up. The sound of the instrument ticking in my ears. The setting sun shone through the blinds, casting a beautiful layer of golden light on the nearby sofa. I blinked, and the nightmare gradually faded away as I sat up. A man sat on the sofa, quietly peeling an apple. His fair and slender fingers were very dexterous, and in no time, a complete fruit appeared, round and clean. It was Victor Wilson. He heard the movement, looked up, met my gaze, got up silently, and pressed the bell. The doctor quickly came in, checked my pupils, confirmed that I was fine. And then he turned to Victor and said, she's not getting enough nutrition. For her regular diet, she should focus on adding more protein. Victor nodded, thank you. The door closed. He walked to the bedside and handed me the apple. Don't think about anything, just focus on getting better. I didn't take it, but got out of bed and started searching through the cabinet. My phone was gone, and there were no clothes to wear outside. He let me mess around in the hospital room. Victor Wilson, what do you want to do? I stood barefoot on the ground, a beam of sunlight coming in, reflecting my pale and haggard face on the glass. Don't you know what I want to do? Victor placed the apple on the bedside table, took out a tissue, and methodically wiped his hands clean. I want you. He sat in the light, his black eyes staring at me unabashedly, his gaze intense and humiliating. I trembled and clenched my fists. Victor, you can't treat me like this. He stood up, took 2 or 3 steps to stand in front of me. He looked down at me from a higher position and tidied my hair for me. Why not? I have someone I like. Please stop pestering me. Is that so? There was no smile on his face. He cupped my face, leaned in, and stopped his lips just 1 centimeter away from mine. I couldn't break free from him, and at that moment when I turned my head, closed my eyes, my body shivered uncontrollably. Victor smiled, his cold voice pouring into my ears. Jasmine Fisher, you're lying. The private hospital is located in the suburbs, with endless forests outside the windows. I couldn't leave, nor could I contact anyone. I once tried to seek help from the doctors and nurses, but they said they couldn't do anything. Victor comes every day. Most of the time it's in the evening when he rushes in, dusty and windblown, to talk to me for a while. I resisted his intimacy, and Victor didn't insist. Lately, I keep dreaming about the past. Back then, I used to mention Victor's name all the time. I'd say, Victor, you will definitely become rich and successful in the future. Victor sighed silently. What flavor of milk do you want today? Banana flavor. And so, to buy me banana milk, the top student Victor skipped class for the first time and got caught by the teacher. Later, we went to college. Rumors about him and the campus belle started spreading. I cried at the bottom of the boys' dormitory after riding the subway for a dozen stations. In the middle of the night, Victor hurriedly got dressed and came downstairs to gently wipe away my tears. Don't cry. If you want me, I'm yours. From now on, there's only you for me. That's not how a confession works. He was taken aback, then hugged me tightly. I love you. Back then, maybe we couldn't have guessed that this would be the situation 10 years later. Tomorrow, I'm getting married. The sun hadn't set yet outside the window, and its warmth still lingered. Victor's voice brought me back from my distant thoughts. Do you have something to tell me? I held the half-empty glass of milk, gazing at his face in a daze. Suddenly, I understood why I had been having frequent dreams lately. I was bidding farewell to the past Jasmine Fisher and Victor Wilson. The news about him and Heidi Gill was playing on TV every day. Perfect match. Made for each other. That used to be the future we envisioned. But now Jasmine Fisher has a troubled past and a lot of bad debts. What qualifications does she have to be by his side? Congratulations. Congratulations, I said. Wish you have a happy life and have a cute child soon. Victor paused in his apple peeling. The knife nicked his finger, and soon a trickle of blood appeared. He hesitated, dabbed it with a tissue, and smiled faintly. It's okay. It's just a marriage of convenience between her and me. Do you want children? I don't mind having children with you. Victor, let's just leave it at that, okay? I suddenly felt very tired. Let's all keep our dignity. Victor also stopped peeling the apple, threw the things back into the fruit basket, and stared at me, with a hint of sarcasm on his face. Just leave it at that? Why? You started it. And now, with a casual "I'm tired of playing," you want to leave. Then what am I to you? Am I just a dog to you? I closed my eyes, dispelling the halo of sunlight at the bottom of my eyes. Then I'll give it back to you. Victor stiffened. What are you saying? I looked at the setting sun. If you don't want me to live, well, I can go die. My chin was suddenly gripped, turning my head, and I met Victor's eyes full of anger. Jasmine Fisher, are you out of your mind? If you wanted to die so much, why didn't you do it back then? I can't remember when he left. That night, Victor's best friend Paul Gill, who was also my friend many years ago, pushed the door open and barged in. Jasmine, what did you promise me? He bombarded me with questions, leaving me confused. Do you know how much Victor will lose if they cancel the engagement? You are already an adult. Can you stop being willful and reckless like before, letting Victor take care of everything for you? Can you think for him? What's wrong? You said what's wrong? Paul Gill laughed angrily and yelled at me. Victor is going to break off the engagement because of you. And you ask me what's wrong? My ears were buzzing, and I sat there blankly, my mind empty. He openly wants to break off the engagement. Where does that leave me? Am I just a third party destroying someone else's family? Paul Gill dragged me off the bed forcefully. Come with me. Weren't you heartless to him back then? You are tired of playing with him. You have a new love. There are so many similar excuses. You can just say one to him. Paul Gill. Jasmine. Paul Gill trembled with anger. If you hadn't come back, would all these things have happened? His roar echoed in the snowstorm. The north wind howled, freezing all my senses. My ears were buzzing, and I couldn't hear anything. His eyes were filled with unprecedented disgust, as if someone like me should just die. Paul, it was him who refused to let me go. His face turned cold. After this is done, I'll send you away.